Probably one of the most significant pieces of information that's available to everybody is in this document. The Project for a New American Century is an extreme right-wing think tank. And in September 2000, they published a report called Rebuilding America's Defenses. And this is the blueprint for everything that's occurring. I mean, it shouldn't be any surprise to anybody. I mean, when you pick up this report, you'd actually think it was written by, well, George Orwell on acid. I mean, it's just outrageous. I mean, it makes 1984 look like kindergarten stuff. And when you look at the way they talk about, you know, the need for the US to take global control by any means possible, to take control of cyberspace, to take control of space, to use pharmaceuticals, to develop geno-targeted weapons, DNA-targeted weapons, you'd think, Jesus Christ, this is written by a bunch of psychopaths. And then when you turn to the back page and see all the signatories, you realize that's exactly what it is. It's written by a bunch of people. 27 of them had the courage to at least put their names to it. Well, I assume they did, and somebody didn't just take their names. But these guys, ostensibly they are American, but they are not American. They are transnationals. Most of them actually have 2 passports, one American, one Israeli. And we'll touch more on that a bit later on. But these are transnationals. They are globalists. Their agenda is global. And in this report, published in September 2000, there's a very, very telling paragraph on page 51, which talks about how the American government, the administration, the neocon administration, is actually going to get the support of the American people to support this global agenda. Because they know that the American people don't really have a stomach for war. I mean, war's not a natural aspect of humanity. You know, one of the things that I've learned working in the oil industry for 20 years, and I've worked with many, many nationalities all around the globe, and one thing I absolutely know for certain, from personal experience, is that mankind is fundamentally compassionate and cooperative. And we respect each other's cultural differences. We respect each other's different, you know, belief systems. But when we come together, we unite in cooperation. But the guys that are putting this together and managing the global agenda right now are not human as we would define humanity. They believe that the human race is a slave race there to serve their agenda. And in this document, published in September 2000, on page 51, they said, further the process of transformation, i.e. getting America on the road to global hegemony, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic event, like a new Pearl Harbor. And of course, a year later, that's exactly what they got. A contrived event. Is there anybody in the room who still believes the conspiracy theory that 19 Arabs hijacked 4 planes, flew 2 of them into the World Trade Center Twin Towers, 1 of them into the Pentagon, 1 of them, the passengers apparently took over and it crashed in Shanksville. And of course, apparently, somehow, they remarkably were able to demolish a 3rd tower without hitting it. World Trade Center 7 collapsing at 5:20 in the afternoon of 9/11. But this was the defining moment of the 21st century. It's defined the agenda to date. It's created the vehicle to persuade the American people of the legitimacy of launching 2 illegal wars. The vast majority of the people in America still believe that Saddam Hussein was behind the 9/11 attacks. I mean, this is just completely outrageous, but that's the power of the media. But take a look at this. This is the Tower Tarot card. Anybody recognize the similarity between what's depicted on the Tower Tarot card and the events of 9/11? It's remarkable. Was it by accident? Was it by design? Was it divine intervention? I mean, look at it, the top, the crown toppling over, which is exactly what happened when the first tower collapsed, less than an hour after being hit by a plane. We have the bolt of flame coming out of the tower, we have the people falling, and even the pile of rubble that was left bears remarkable reminiscence to the pile that was left at the bottom. Now, this is very, very significant. It's very, very interesting, because I'm not a specialist in the tarot, but what I discovered was that the tarot Tower card, the 16th card of the major arcana, if you draw this card, it probably indicates that you're going to go through a very, very significant change in your life. You know, basically, your whole world is going to be ripped from under you. It's the sort of card that you might draw just as you're about to go through what in the West we call the midlife crisis, you know, where everything's going to fall apart around you. Well, consider the possibility that on that day in 9/11, the planet, humanity, was dealt the Tower card. And it has fundamentally changed everything we thought we knew. And there's a number of possibilities here. One of the possibilities, obviously, is the version of events that's being presented by the mainstream media and those who control the mainstream media. And another one is an agenda that maybe we can explore for ourselves. And another one is perhaps something completely hidden, the occult agenda. Good afternoon, come in. Let me introduce you to this guy. This is a guy called Philip Zelikow. Now, Philip Zelikow is a Harvard graduate, and his speciality when he studied at Harvard is social conditioning. Social conditioning. It would be naive to believe that all the way through history, there haven't been people who have seen it as their role to effectively manage humanity, to manage the human race. And let me quote you from this guy's thesis. Because in his thesis, he says, contemporary history is defined functionally by those critical people and events that go into forming the public's presumptions about its immediate past. The idea of public presumption is akin to the notion of public myth, but without the negative connotation of the word myth. Such presumptions are beliefs thought to be true, although not necessarily known to be true with any real certainty, and shared with the relevant political community. This is how shit like global warming is managed. It's plausible. And they know that the vast majority of people don't know, so all they've got to do is get a few scientists on board, get them to doctor their reports, or certainly not argue too much with the politicized version of the report, which is effectively what occurred with the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, and then put it out as de facto science. It is not true that all scientists agree on the politicized version of the IPCC. And this is a classic example of what this guy's talking about. Now, Philip Zelikow was given a very, very important role. And his role, because he was a specialist in social engineering, was to produce the 9/11 Commission report, establishing the public myth. This is the document that Dr. David Ray Griffin has described as a 571-page lie. And in his book, The 9/11 Commission Report, Omissions and Distortions, he deconstructs the 9/11 Commission report and demonstrates, basically that it's a complete crock. And if anybody has actually read the government narrative of the events that supposedly occurred on July 7th, 2005, you'd see it's exactly the same. Now, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, an extreme right-wing think tank called the Club of Rome were tasked with finding a new enemy for basically the West, because we no longer had the Cold War, we could no longer demonize those pesky Russians. And you know what? These guys couldn't even be original, because I found this phrase in their report. It says, in searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. And what have we got going on right now? Yeah. Water, all that, exactly. They're telling us, we have to look for it, but we're telling us, and we should be saying, give us a break. We're just not going to take this bullshit anymore. But, the vast majority of people are just going to buy it hook, line, and sinker, because these guys, their agenda is to create the chaos so they can bring order to that chaos. They create the problem and then, of course, provide the solution.